Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Claibs Online. This is Two-Man Game. That is Matt Rocchio. I'm Bob Ramsey, and we throw around things about basketball, pro and college, a couple times a week. And now we're in the NBA playoffs, and we're not mentioning college basketball much, Rock, but a topic has come up that's piqued your interest.
Yeah, Matt Norlander, obviously the great college basketball writer over at CBS Sports, just dropped this about 25 minutes ago or so about a potential change to the college basketball scheduling. And what the idea here is, and if you're a big college basketball fan, you remember the days of bracket busters back in the 2000s, into the early 2010s. The setup of those games to kind of get some eyes on some teams maybe people hadn't seen, shore up
Yeah,
the resume a little bit, give you maybe get some early kind of tournament games out of the way, just to kind of see who's the cream of the crop and who isn't, that kind of stuff. And so the idea here would be for 1 week in February, teams from 22 of the 32 Division I conferences would come together, would get all jumbled up, and they would play two non-conference games. It would be a home and home or home and away game at least. I'm not sure. It says just here home and away game, so maybe it would be neutral sites. Maybe not. So maybe it's not a home and home, but a home game and an away game. With the majority of those games happening 3 days apart, mostly on Wednesday and then Saturday, with the window commencing just after Valentine's Day. And essentially, they would decide the matchups using an algorithm to decide which best teams would play the other best teams, and they wouldn't be determining those games until the end of January. And essentially, again, it was conjured up by the WAC commissioner. It was kind of his brainchild, kind of as a way to just get more eyes in a nationwide event, much like Bracket Busters used to. And hell, I'm sure there's a TV show where they pick all the games that are be attributed to this for the money aspect. All I know is I like the idea of changing things around and giving us premier non-conference matchups in February after we've kind of had that conference reset where teams kind of show you who they are. I really like the idea.
I do too. Big picture, I'd be surprised if the Big Five plus one or two go for it. That would surprise me. Second thing is, I think Valentine's Day is a week or two too late. You need to be getting ready for your conference tournament. But that now I'm nitpicking. It's kind of what I do, though, right?
That's why I wanted to bring it to you. It's in the infancy of the idea. We got to get Rammer's opinion on it so they can really iron out the details.
I would say more like the first week of February would be good.
Yeah.
That way you've had a month of conference games, gives you a breather, reset, but you got to go play the non-conference games against theoretically a like opponent. So does Michigan State want to play Auburn in February? I don't know. I know for a fact SLU would play Boise because they're on the schedule. So can you get more games like that? What mid-majors really need is Wyoming needs to play Auburn, right? Not Auburn, Michigan State like teams, but somebody who might be really good to jump from mid-major to high major. That's what they really need. If you can get the Power Fives to agree to that, I'd be on board anyway, but I think there'd be a greater value if you did it that way. What that formula is, I don't know, but I'd sure like to be in the room to help figure it out.
Yeah, and the biggest question here, this is genius, and this is great for us because now you're going to use another algorithm to determine how you pick things. Well, that's another thing for us to complain about. Thank you very much. I appreciate it when they just lay it out for us like that, because that's eventually what's going to happen. People are going to complain about what they're using for the algorithm, and I'm sure it'll just be a modified. I'm sure they'll just take the the new one they came up with, with all their tier 1s and tier 2s or whatever the hell it is. And they'll just extrapolate that or condense it down to give them their answer for what the best matchups will be in this arena. But, same thing with the NBA's kind of mini-tournament in the midseason. I'm always okay with stopping the season for a minute, stratifying it, and saying, here's what we got, here's what we're looking at, these are where teams are at. Let's take a new look at things. I like the idea of kind of breaking up the monotony. Hell, especially in a sport like the NBA, you need a college basketball, even though it's only 30 games, can feel at times, like it needs kind of a re-jump right there in late winter. Hell, I'd love if baseball could figure out a way to kind of break the monotony in the middle of the 162. So I like anything like this, and I think college basketball getting more teams, getting more a non-conference game here or there after a little bit of conference season. I think that's just going to be a fun thing if you like, prognosticating and looking towards the tournament. Anytime you can get a little blip of somebody. I mean, if we could have got a second look at SLU against, even a UAB level team, outside of the conference, I think that would have been a really interesting way for us to look at St. Louis going forward right there in that February moment.
Yeah, and another thing is, are these games added to your schedule or in place of? I'd like to add it to the schedule. That would be important. Or if it's in place of, then, do you get rid of your bye games? Well, that's a tough one because of budgets. It always comes down to business, right?
Yeah.
So if you need 16 home games and one of them is East Toenail State and the other one is Rocky Hill Wesleyan, and I'm paying you $250,000 for you to come in. Now you say I got to lose those games to put two really hard games on. That's how it should be, but that might be a tough sell.
Yeah, I agree. You're absolutely right. By the way, Rocky Hill Wesleyan, a really good history program, I hear. Just they got a
well,
really
historically, but they've fallen on hard times.
Ain't that the truth? So that's a little bit of college basketball talk here. Obviously, the big thing right now, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. Round 2 has moved into Game 2 for all 4 series, and it's Tuesday. So remember what I thought we'd do today? It's really simple. It's Tuesday, it's Game 2, it's Round 2, and it's the 51st. Oh, son of a... See, it was the 51st episode of Two Man Game. I missed it by 1. We're gonna do. I got
Let's
2
stop
points
here and start over and do 2 shows today.
Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, see you guys later. I got 2 points for each of these 4 series as they move on from Game 1 and into Game 2.
Well, Philadelphia here. Let me start, and then you take the baton and run with it. Philadelphia at Miami without Embiid, they have no chance. Zero. Go.
All right. 0 chance. Got it. Yeah, you're not wrong. They had a chance to steal one in Miami without Embiid. Miami didn't have Kyle Lowry. It was looking good, a few minutes into the third, and then it just completely fell apart. And the reason it fell apart is because Doc Rivers, for some reason, thought that despite the early minutes in the first half where they were getting their butt kicked in those minutes, he thought he could roll with DeAndre Jordan in the second half. And Eric Spoelstra's arguably the best coach in the NBA, and he's maybe inarguably the best adjustments coach in the NBA. And to show him those DeAndre Jordan minutes early and to give him a chance to attack it the exact same way, or for you to attack him with DeAndre Jordan the exact same way and expect him to counterattack the exact same way, it's just it shows why Doc Rivers continues to be kind of the laughing button right now in the NBA playoffs for all the pundits, because he just walks himself down. He just walks himself in the open for this kind of criticism, because Spoelstra and the Heat just picked DeAndre Jordan apart. They murdered him every single time he was out there. Mm-hmm. Bad big men get hunted in the NBA, and then as we talk about some other series later down the road, good big men are a game changer, but bad big men get hunted by good teams. And the Miami Heat, despite the issues with the injuries to Kyle Lowry, the fact that Jimmy Butler is not 100%, the fact that Duncan Robinson is not ready right now, whether that means mentally or physically ready to be on the court right now and play at this level defensively, I'm not sure. But, I mean, the Heat have flaws, but, I mean, there was no point in that game where I think people doubted that the Heat were going to make that comeback.
I agree, and so for Game 2,
yeah, I mean, injuries suck, and that's the big thing. Like you said, do they actually have a chance without Joel Embiid? I just don't think so, because right now Doc Rivers isn't showing me that he has a plan to figure out what to do without Embiid right now. Bam Adebayo is going to feast against them in every way, shape, and form that he wants to, and you're never going to be able to beat the Heat in the very simple way of hunting a switch on your own, because Bam is like as a center, he's like a top 25 perimeter defender. Like and I'm not saying like as a center he's that good. I'm saying if you take away all positions, Bam is a top 25 perimeter defender in the NBA as a 6'10 center. So Harden's not going to be able to pull the 1-5 switch and get these ISOs that he wants. And Tyrese Maxey's certainly not going to be able to. And Tyrese Maxey, a great young player, but he's the kind of player that good coaches can scheme around their game a lot of the times.
Well,
he's gonna explode because he's that good, but Spoelstra's not going to let him do it multiple games in a row.
The thing with Maxey, because of his youth, you're really good when he's your third option, because then coaches can't match up as well and can't game plan for you as well. If he's the number 2 guy, it's only one slot up. But if he's got to be your 2 guy, he can be a key focal point of what you're doing defensively, and that's where Philadelphia is right now.
Yeah, that's why Tobias Harris getting 25, 27 points. It really shouldn't be shocking, and people shouldn't be like, well, I mean, is the Heat defense that good if a guy like Tobias Harris, who doesn't do that anymore in the playoffs, can do that? That was a picture-perfect example of saying, we'll let them get this guy, we'll let this guy get his shots up, and if he hits them, fine, we're going to win this game. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Tobias Harris having a game like that was not honestly that shocking when you saw that they just overloaded everything to Maxey and Harden's side, and then would let Harris get kind of easy looks, because he's not going to beat him no matter if he gets 25 or 30 points. He's just not going to.
Yeah. The other game last night, Phoenix Dallas was very game, but Phoenix kind of looked to me kind of like the team we saw most of the year.
Listen, if Jason Kidd is going to have to keep saying smart basketball things, I'm going to get really annoyed. But he came out and he said before the game, he goes, listen, DeAndre Ayton he's not Hassan Whiteside. He's not Rudy Gobert. This guy knows how to put the ball in the hoop when you give it to him. And he was absolutely 100% right, which is why my only vindicating factor is that he was 100% correct and still lost game 1. Because this is what happens when you have a big man, like you said, who can't get hunted defensively, a la DeAndre Jordan or Rudy Gobert, and then is also a factor on the offensive end the way other guys aren't, a la DeAndre Jordan and a Rudy Gobert. And you saw what it can do when you can play defense with a guy like that on the perimeter, and what happens when they have to go small to try to beat you, and then you just destroy them inside because they went small. And so I love what DeAndre Ayton was doing in that game. The guy shoots close to 70%, and he doesn't dunk the ball, which is weird. Just dunk the ball, DeAndre. It goes in every time if you do that. Just kind of a logical thing there.
Play the numbers.
Exactly, play the numbers. And so what they were able to do was just so textbook. And then Luka, again, he's going to be able to get his. Mikal Bridges is incredible. Mikal Bridges is incredible. I couldn't believe what Luka was able to do against him. That's the one thing. I understand hey, Luka's going to get his, and the Suns are going to be okay with that. But they weren't able to put a stop in the points where they wanted Luka to slow down a little bit. Mikal couldn't do that, and that was kind of the only surprising thing that really came out of game 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And if they can find a way, probably a little more old school and maybe not their style, a little more ball movement. I think the offense can begin and end with Doncic, but incorporating more in between the beginning and the end, because like you say, he knows I can go get mine, but I've got to get more people involved. That's a lot to put on one guy. Not really even fair, but if he can do that, maybe they can give Phoenix a series.
I should have double checked this one, but it literally just hit me. One of the things I was thinking about last night. I mean, Jalen Brunson, we talked about him, willing them, to really get something going and win those games without Doncic in the first round. He only had 13 points yesterday in 31 minutes played. I think he only took 6 or 7 shots. That's exactly what you're talking to. I'm not saying that Jalen Brunson getting a little bit more offense is going to be the difference in them winning a playoff series, but Luka being able to incorporate Brunson, he shot 16 times, my bad. But I mean, the fact that they weren't able to get him going and get him good looks, and because he felt quiet the entire game after being so good. And again, the Suns are a great defensive team, and if you're pulling Devin Booker and you're pulling Chris Paul in matchups, it's going to be hard to score points. But you got to get guys like Brunson involved if you're going to keep moving forward. Because, again, we've seen it against Kawhi and Paul George last year in the playoffs. Luka can wear down even the best wing defenders. You're going to see it again tomorrow night when we watch Game 2. But he's got to involve more of the team. You're absolutely right. And another last thing I'll say on this one, Draymond Green, who was recording a podcast after he got ejected from Game 1 of that game, which we're about to talk about, he was breaking down the analysis on this game. This was incredible. Before the game happened, he talked about how, okay, well, if I was the Mavericks, what I would do is I would come out with Dorian Finney-Smith on Devin Booker because he's a little bit bigger, and I'd come out with I'm blanking and I'd come up with my other guard, Reggie Bullock. I come up with Reggie Bullock on Chris Paul, and that would be my thing. And then most likely, what's going to happen is, after they see that for the first half, the Suns are going to make some changes. What I'm going to do then is at a halftime, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to have Dorian Finney-Smith then go get Chris Paul for the second half and have Bullock take Booker. And swear to God, hours later, it plays out 100% the way Draymond predicted. They start the game, Finney-Smith on Booker, Bullock on Paul, and at halftime, the Suns make adjustments, and the Mavericks counter was exactly to flip those two. And it's just another example of how Draymond Green is a genius when it comes to defense. And it also comes down to the thing, as much as I love this game and I appreciate it and I try to get as much as I can, there are 9 levels and I'm still hanging out on like level 3. And that's the cool thing, and that's what I love about today's game, is that I like that Draymond Green reminds me that there's a lot of things that I don't know. And I like that, though, that the curtain, while still up in a lot of ways, is thinner than it ever has been between the sport and the fans. And now we can see the way that a guy like Draymond Green goes through that thought process. Even though if I can't match it, I never will be able to, because he's the best mentally defensive player I think ever in the NBA, or at least we have had in a long time. It's fascinating to see that play out.
Yeah, I agree, and it is really fun that while he may be a madman, he's also a defensive genius.
Absolutely.
And you can be both.
Absolutely. And speaking of that Warriors series, Draymond gets ejected, and the Grizzlies still can't win Game 1. They still can't beat Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Poole. And so my question to you, Rammer, is just after Game 1, I don't want to freak out, but is this series maybe not going to go the way we thought?
It may not, because Golden State now has all their guys back.
Yeah.
And so, but to me, to oversimplify the game, Desmond Bane had a bad game.
And Dylan Brooks is just he's too much in his shot right now. He's feeling it too much in times when he should not, and he's got to pull back and understand. D'Anthony Melton's playing good offense. Desmond Bane most games is playing good offense. Jaren Jackson Jr. was in the game that entire game. You know, you don't need to be shooting like that, my friend.
Everybody needs to know where they fit in a given game, in a given moment. This is going to make us better. Not just, can I make a shot? What is the best shot for our team? And then on the defensive end, you know, when Golden State is really rolling, it's hard to stop them. So you better not mess up offensively.
Yeah, and again, the thing about Golden State is they're so good defensively too, and sometimes that wild kind of blind headstrong Russian stuff, it just turned into sloppy basketball a lot of the time against the Warriors. They're gonna muck it up in that way, and overall, the game got slowed down, and the Grizzlies, especially against the Warriors, and the fact that it was that close really shows you how important Draymond was. The Grizzlies are never going to beat the Warriors in halftime basketball. That will never happen in the current iteration of these two teams. It just won't. The Grizzlies play better when they get out in front and Ja can push the pace, and the Warriors are built to play half-court basketball when they can murder you with shooting. That's just that. I mean, that's the fact. And so this is the good and bad of a young team is that usually they have trouble controlling games against much more experienced teams like that. The good, though, is that at any moment they can continue to grow, like Jaren Jackson the last 2 games, playing the full game, not getting in foul trouble, shooting the lights out of the ball, scoring 30 points alongside Ja. So freaking good. And then there's also, the side of, this team doesn't know that they should be scared, I don't think. And I think that's another, weird pro of having an inexperienced team is they don't know when, the the big bad team with 3 rings that is finally healthy is sneaking up behind them with a knife. They're not aware. I don't know if they're wholly aware of it, which is a good thing because you don't want them to have that fear. But I mean, the fact of the matter is they're not as experienced and they're not as primed for the level and intensity of playoff basketball the way the Warriors are, and that con of a young team has been apparent already.
Yeah, and then again, oversimplification. Memphis has 3 stars. They got to all 3 be playing well at the same time, or they cannot match up with Golden State on either end of the floor.
Yeah.
They just can't.
Again, Golden State has 4, and one of them got ejected, and the 3 played better. So, like we're just doing really simple math here. This is essentially a segment that Sesame Street could have done. If you have 3 good players and they have 4, and then they have 1 less, but they all play better. I could have done this in a voice the entire time.
When they play game 2 tonight, I suggest that they will be a little better, Memphis, a little better offensively. And what can they do to defend, which is something people have been asking about Golden State for 6-8 years? So what do you think the answer that they come up with is?
I think that's going to be the biggest question. I think what we're going to see is Taylor Jenkins is going to go to an old school system. I think we're going to see some weird zone play to try to isolate the ball out of Steph Curry's hands and say, listen, Clay, we know you can beat us, but you're going to have to do it. Listen, hey, Poole, we got a bunch of young players. You're the youngest player on this team. Let's put the ball in your hands and say it's time for the young bucks to prove this. So yeah. I think maybe you do some weird zone stuff. I'm not saying go full on box and one like Nick Nurse did up in Toronto to win that championship, but you do some weird zone stuff. You get the ball out of Curry's hands, and you try to make it to be that though it's Poole and Clay beating you in this game. And then the biggest thing I mentioned is I talked about how they need to play fast. It doesn't need to be half-court basketball. We talked about this with St. Louis, earlier this year on the college side. You can't play fast if you're not getting stops on defense. That's one part of it.
Absolutely.
You can play a naturally faster game, a quicker pace, but everyone in the NBA plays fast to a point where they optimize possessions. To actually play fast in a consistent back and forth, you got to get stops, you got to force misses, and right now the only way they're going to do that is by not letting Stephen Curry completely just dictate the pace of the game.
And can you win the free throw battle? That's the other thing with Memphis because of their willingness to drive. If they can have the discipline not to foul defensively and win the free throw battle, stylistically, I think they can get an edge, but are they going to be disciplined enough?
Yep, it'll be interesting to see. And again, Jaren Jackson Jr. stays out of foul trouble, especially against a guy like Draymond, who can be a little, who can later on in the series, who can get in your head a little bit. If Jaren Jackson Jr. continues playing like this, and Desmond Bane snaps out for a game, it'll be a longer series like we expected. But if both of those things don't happen, unfortunately, I think it's going to be a shorter trip, but a good lesson for our friends in Memphis.
Well, we've set it up. And tonight's games are the ones for me with personal interest, with Jason Tatum, obviously, and Milwaukee. Oh, we haven't talked about them yet. Oh, we got to talk about
That's the last one. And the only thing
Milwaukee, Boston. Here's the thing. Milwaukee's size and skill with it, but their size is so problematic in a league where we've talked about it a bunch this winter, in a league where size isn't the end all. Milwaukee's size is so big and so skilled, and how they can defend with that size, really problematic. And we always talk about matching offense for offense. Now you try to match their defense, and without a Smart in there for Boston, that's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, and the biggest takeaway for me when you were watching that Celtics defense was the difference in how Tatum was playing Giannis or Durant. Actually, I shouldn't say that. He was playing them very similarly. The difference in how playing them that way was going for him. Because when Durant would get the ball under the line and would try to put his body on Tatum, Tatum would win those matchups because Tatum is a legitimate 6'10" now, and he's cut, and he's thick. But there's a spectrum of thickness in this conversation, and Kevin Durant's here, and Giannis is here. And yeah, Tatum's here. He's bigger than Durant, but he is still smaller than Giannis. He was bouncing off of him like a freaking pinball the entire game. Every time Giannis would catch the ball under the three-point line, Jason Tatum would do the same thing he did to the last MVP scorer he faced off against, body him up immediately, give him pressure. And he was bouncing off of him, and he would pop back up and like run a shoulder into Giannis's hip, but Giannis would just like flush that off and go in for a layup. And so I'm not sure what the Celtics can do, because right now that elite defense isn't doing anything because they physically cannot stop Giannis in a way that, again, people talk about him being the most unstoppable player since Shaq, and it's because players just bounce off of him. It's as soon as he went from being just like this 7-foot-tall, super athlete who could jump out of the gym and became, cut and thick, like I was just talking about with Tatum, Giannis he entered that area and he's still there. And I think this is a great example of how he's just risen above everyone else when he really wants to.
Yeah. And, they've kind of floundered a little bit all year long, but now you can see what they're capable of, and it's pretty darn impressive. And
if the Celtics figure out a way to stop the Bucks and win this, that growth will push them forward. This is the battle for the East. I don't care about the Heat being the 1 seed. Obviously, I'm a fan of them, but this right here is whoever gets out of this battle is winning the East and playing in the finals. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Hot take to wrap up the show. Well done. It's going to be a lot of fun watching tonight. We'll reconvene as we get ready or into game 3s of these series in the NBA, and hopefully they're as exciting as the early ones have been. Rocc, have a great couple of days, and I'll talk to you later in the week.
Talk to you later, Rammer.
That's Matt Rocc. I'm Bob Ramsey. It's the two-man game right here on Claibs Online.
At St. Louis Acura, we have over 330 pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models. And all of them are covered by our St. Louis Acura Promise and backed by our Better Business Bureau A+ rating and 30 years in business. We also service all makes and models of vehicles, including glass and bumper repair, paint touch-ups, and full mechanical services from one of our 24 technicians. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you, no matter what vehicle drives you.